Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and welcome to day 10 of the Cracklathon, where I am doing a crackle a day for an entire month. So today we're going to be using some white Prima polymer clay rolled out on our thickest setting, which is about 2mm thick, and this crackle paste. Now if you haven't already had a look at our previous days, which incorporate many different techniques, going from basically a heatgun crackle to crackling with paint, to crackling with alcohol, to just crackling by drying out the clay by using paper. So go back and have a look, because I'm sure some of you aren't going to be able to do this technique because you don't have this paste. So if you still want to do a crackle, go back and have a look at some of the previous days, because I covered a lot of different crackles. So I'm just going to take some of this paste, which is quite thick, and I'm just going to paint it over the surface. And you want a fairly thick layer, not too thick, but fairly thick. And it needs to be somewhat even, but don't try to make it completely even, because the thinner areas will have thin cracks, the thicker areas will have thicker cracks. So to have a little bit of variety is important, so make some areas thicker and some areas thinner. And I'm just going to try and spread that out. Okay, there we are. Now that takes a little while to dry. I'd say probably about 3 hours without the assistance of a hairdryer or a heat gun. I do want to show you though what you can do with a hairdryer or a heat gun. You want to make sure that you have it on the lowest heat setting, so you're not curing your clay, and the highest wind speed. There we are. You'll do that until you start to see cracks. So let me just point out those cracks. You can see there's one there, there, and there. You will just quickly heat gun that. Wait about 15 minutes. Repeat with the heat gun until you see more cracks appearing, and just repeat until basically it has finished crackling, which can take about an hour. Okay, and here is what it looks like after it is cured. And you can see what a beautiful crackle that creates. You don't even need to put that through a pasta machine. So now you can see that it curls up the clay quite a bit. It's still stuck onto the clay, so it's not curling up off the clay. It's actually ripping off the top layer of clay. So what you want to do is you want to grab a piece of plain printing paper and just give it a very quick burnish. Not too much, you just want to burnish it so that it's stuck down onto the clay again. And you can see there that there is a lot less of that lifting up. Now I want to antique it. Now this crackle paste reacts rather badly to items that are wet, such as paint or ink. So we are going to be using pastels. You can use mica powder as well if you do not have pastels. But I'm going to be taking some black pastel here. And I'm just going to scrape that over the surface. And now the clay is still wet, so the pastel should stick to the clay. There we go, and that will give us a very effective antiquing, well, not disturbing the crackle. Because I have tried it with paint before, and although it gives a very interesting effect, what happens is you actually end up removing the crackle, which is very similar to what we did yesterday with the Kroma Crackle. But I don't want to do that this time around. I would prefer we didn't end up removing the crackle. So if you use paint, just remember that when you're rubbing the paint off to get that clean antique look, you are probably going to end up removing the crackle and end up resulting with something that we had basically yesterday. Now I just have a little bit of pastel over here, so I'm just going to quickly use a wet wipe to just gently clean up the surface. I'm not rubbing very hard, I'm just cleaning up a bit. Okay. And I'm just going to use a tissue which is nice and dry to just try to remove more of that pastel if I can. And that's basically what you're going to end up with. You can carry on messing with it to try and get a cleaner finish, but basically that is what you're going to be left with. You're not going to end up with something completely clean, which is fine. Okay, so I don't want to mess with it anymore because I can feel that I am lifting up some areas. So I'm just going to give that a quick burnish again, just to stick everything down. And I'm going to lift it up and quickly clean off the tile. Okay, and so I did clean it up a little bit more with a wet wipe just to give it a much brighter effect. And so you can see how beautiful that looks, and I really quite like that. Now remember that this crackle paste dries white, so if you're putting it on a black background you're going to find that it has a slightly grey hue to it. It's slightly translucent, but for the most part it dries opaque, so just keep that in mind when you're working with it. You can also add alcohol inks to it to dye it. I think you can add a little bit of acrylic paint. I have not tested that. I'll have to test that in a later video at some point. But you can colour it with pastels or alcohol ink if you wanted to give it a coloured effect. But that's basically it for this tutorial, so I do hope that that was helpful to you. Again, check back and have a look at the previous tutorials that we've done, because some of you might not have this crackle paste, so don't feel like you can't do any of the crackle tutorials. I've really done a very wide variety of crackles. Some using just clay, some using a heat gun, some using mica shifts, some using mica, some using pretty strong alcohol, some using metal leaf. So be sure to go back and have a look, as I'm pretty sure there are some there that you will be able to do, even if you only have clay. So be sure to check those out. And also be sure to join my group Jessama Tutorials Polymer Clay Community on Facebook, as we will be voting for our favourite crackle at the end of the month. And at the end of the month, once we have decided on our favourite crackle, I will be doing a tutorial revolving around it. So be sure to check that out. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.